With a swift motion, Sarah gathered her unruly curls into a messy bun, securing it with a pencil. Perching her thin-framed glasses on her nose, she peered intently at the computer screen. The photos from the recent lavish wedding definitely needed some touching up. The parents had paid generously. She had to deliver her absolute best. "The groom's a bit blurry," she muttered, zooming in on the image. Her delicate fingers, adorned with bohemian rings, danced over the keyboard, making minor adjustments. Pianist's fingers, some might say. Suddenly, Sarah froze. In one of the frames, deep in the reception hall, among the boisterous guests, she caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Her heart skipped a beat. "This can't be," she whispered, studying the blurred silhouette. Memory helpfully conjured images from the past. Summer camp. She was only 16. First love. Jack Harrison. Incredibly, but it had to be him. Sarah shook her head, trying to banish the unwanted memories. Glancing at the clock, she cursed under her breath. She had a meeting with new clients in an hour. Hastily changing into a smart pantsuit, Sarah grabbed her camera bag and rushed out of the apartment. She arrived at the cafe right on time for the meeting. She knew that punctuality is the courtesy of kings, even if you're just a freelance photographer from Craigslist. The soon-to-be newlyweds were already waiting at a table. "Hello, I'm Sarah, your photographer," she smiled warmly, shaking hands with the clients. In a way, they'd be like friends for the immediate future. "Nice to meet you. I'm Anna, and that is my fiancé, Jack," the man said hoarsely, raising his eyes to meet Sarah's. Time seemed to stand still. Sarah stared into those achingly familiar brown eyes, unable to believe this was really happening. "Is something wrong?" Anna asked, puzzled. No, everything's fine. I just think I've seen your future husband somewhere before. Can't quite place where. Perhaps we went to school together." Sarah managed pulling herself together. "Yes, definitely such a familiar face." Jack remained silent, his eyes fixed on her. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Sarah mechanically discussed shooting details, trying to avoid eye contact with Jack. His bubbly fiancée, Anna, was fully immersed in planning the upcoming celebration. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation and were drunk with the realization that her status would soon change, if nothing happened to prevent it, that is. Meanwhile, Jack didn't utter another word. After saying goodbye to the couple, Sarah stepped outside and took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking as if she had a fever. "Easy now, Sarah girl. Keep it together," she commanded herself. "It's just work. You've handled worse. Remember that time you had to photograph that exotic dancer at the bachelorette party." But Jack's image wouldn't leave her mind. How he'd changed. More mature now, broader in the shoulders. Only his eyes remained the same, warm, with that sparkle. How should she forget his tenderness and those midnight kisses in the moonlight? How could she forget the sound of waves masking their passionate encounters on the beach? Sarah hadn't noticed how her feet had carried her to the park, where she and Jack used to walk together. Sitting down on a bench, she closed her eyes. A summer evening, air heavily with the scent of blooming lindens, awkward touches of hands, that first kiss that made her head spin. "Hey!" Sarah startled. Jack stood here, hands stuffed in his jeans pockets. "Mind if I sit?" She nodded silently. For a while, the two sat in silence, watching children playing nearby. "How are you?" Jack finally asked. "Fine," Sarah shrugged. "Working, as you can see. Shooting weddings. I enjoy it, it's interesting. Money is not great, but it pays the bills. How about you? By the way, congratulations on your engagement. Your fiancée is wonderful. Anna, she's such a ray of sunshine. So, yeah, congratulations." "Thank you," he stated. "Listen, about the wedding, if it's uncomfortable for you, we can just find another photographer." "Why are you deciding for me what should make me uncomfortable?" Sarah raised her eyebrows. "It's just work, that's all." Jack looked at her intently, his gaze penetrating the emotions Sarah was trying so hard to hide behind her professional demeanor. "Yeah, you've changed. But you're still so—" "Oh no, stop! Please stop! Don't say anything you'll regret. It's been 15 years ago, Jack. You're getting married in a few days." "I remember you as that girl with messy braids and dreamy eyes. So gentle, so passionate. You were ready to follow me to the ends of the earth." Sarah laughed bitterly, not believing she was continuing to lie. "Yeah, but what did we really have? Nothing special, Jack, just a summer fling. We were kids, drawn to the forbidden fruit, wanted to taste it while no one was watching, and like kids with candy, couldn't get enough once we started. But that's all." "It was more than a fling for me. It hurts to hear you talk like this. Maybe I shouldn't have met with you now. Shouldn't have had this conversation. Turns out I've been carrying something in my heart all these years that meant nothing to you. I'm sorry I even approached you," he said quietly. Sarah continued maintaining her mask of indifference, but her strength was failing. "Listen, let's not do this. What's the point of all these revelations? You're getting married. I'll be the photographer at your wedding. You'll pay me my fee, and that's the end of the story." She turned to leave, ready to burst into tears. But Jack grabbed her arm. "Sarah, wait. I understand everything, but I still need to tell you something." She froze, not turning around. "What?" "You should know that I looked for you after that summer, but you'd vanished into thin air." Sarah slowly turned, faced him, tears welling in her eyes. "Why?" "I wanted to apologize for not coming to visit you in New York after camp. I had problems at home. My father got seriously ill. I tried to call you, but—" "Your phone broke," Sarah finished for him. "I remember." They fell silent again. Somewhere in the distance children laughed merrily. "So, what now?" Sarah asked. "What's the point, Jack? You're getting married in a month. What are you trying to do here? Grab onto the past?" He ran his hand through his hair. "I don't know. Really, I don't know. Just I saw you and realized I couldn't pretend nothing had happened. How about you?" Sarah sank back onto the bench wearily. "It didn't happen, Jack, and it's over. We have different lives now." He sat beside her. "What if I had come then? If we hadn't lost touch, what do you think would have happened?" Sarah smiled sadly. "We'll never know." Jack carefully took her hand. "You know, I thought about you often over the years. Imagined how you were living, what you become. If you had a family, how many kids, what kind of husband, what you did for work." "And how did you do? Did you guess right?" Sarah smiled. "Not quite. I was sure you'd become an artist. Remember how well you used to draw. I remember how you draw us together in the sand with a heart beside us. The waves would wash it away and you draw it again. We were happy in the drawing. Back then it seemed so cute, but then life washed away our love and no one drew it again. Sarah laughed. God, Jack, you're such a hopeless romantic. You even remembered that. Me too. Well, photography is a kind of art, so you almost got it right. They talked until dark, remembering summer camp, sharing life stories. When the park lights came on, Sarah caught herself. Oh, I should go. I have a shoot early tomorrow. Jack nodded. Yeah, I should too. Anna's probably freaking out. I have missed a lot of calls from her. Hope she doesn't think I got hit by a car. At the mention of his fiancée, Sarah's face darkened. Jack, listen. What happened today? It doesn't change anything, you understand? He looked at her seriously. And what if it does? Sarah shook her head. No, you have your life, I have mine. Let's leave the past in the past. What are you suggesting? Cancel the wedding? Then what? Are you crazy? Jack was silent for a long time, then nodded. You're right, I'm sorry. He rose from the bench and said sadly, Well, see you at the wedding, Miss Photographer. See you, Mr. Groom, Sarah smiled. She watched Jack disappear into the shadow alley and felt a strange emptiness inside. The bravado inspired by Jack's confessions of still living feelings had evaporated, leaving only a broken heart. How to piece it back together? Returning home, Sarah immediately tried to distract herself with work and turned on her computer. The wedding photos still needed retouching. She found the frame where Jack was visible in the background. Her finger hovered over the delete button. The past should stay in the past, Sarah thought. But at the last moment, she changed her mind. Instead of erasing Jack's figure, Sarah increased the sharpness slightly, making him more distinct against the blurred whole. Let it stay, she decided, as a reminder. Finishing work on the photos, Sarah stretched tiredly. Dawn was breaking outside. She walked to the window like an ancient crone and threw open the panes, breathing in the fresh morning air. A new day and a new shoot lay ahead. Life went on. Sarah smiled at her reflection in the glass. That girl with messy braids was left in the past. But today she learned that a piece of her still lived deep in her heart. Thank you, Jack, Sarah thought, for reminding me about her, and for not trying to pull her out by force. She took one last look at the photo on the computer screen, where Jack's figure was barely visible, and decisively clicked Save to Favorites. The big day arrived. Everything was perfect, just as the bride Anna had planned. Sarah was happy to enjoy the company of many wonderful guests who made it a real celebration. She quickly established a rapport with all the relatives and tirelessly ran around with her camera, capturing moments that would remind the newlyweds of this day. As for the incident with Jack, she managed to keep her composure, despite the groom's constant glances that she could feel even with her back turned. Although he tried to act normally, the pain of their recent park meeting flickered in his eyes. Sarah decided that ignoring these looks to avoid succumbing to overwhelming feelings was the best strategy for this work day. Work. However, when the celebration reached its peak and all the guests were absorbed in games and conversation, Jack, clearly having had too much to drink, waited until Sarah stepped away towards the restroom. His eyes held a mixture of longing and drunken determination as he stumbled in the same direction. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, catching up with Sarah at the very doors. The next thing he did was push her inside and lock the door. Jack barely controlled himself in his desires. "Jack, are you crazy? This is a wedding, your wedding!" Sarah tried to remind him in panic, attempting to maintain professional composure. But her heart was racing wildly and her body seemed to refuse to listen. A wild desire overtook her and her head started spinning. "I can't stop thinking about you, Sarah, about us," he whispered, leaning towards her and breathing wine-scented breath into her face. Sarah went limp. Her mind fought with emotions, but alcohol and old feelings made Jack persistent. With his warm hands touched her, all doubts flew away, and she found herself as if in a trance, hurriedly fumbling with the buttons on his shirt. Afterwards, Sarah stood alone in the restroom for a long time. Jack had returned to the hall. With trembling hands she tried to fix her makeup. "That is a mistake," she repeated to herself like a mantra, but the memory of what had happened wouldn't let go. Gathering her courage and adjusting her dress, Sarah returned to work and tried to act as if nothing had happened. The wedding continued. Naturally, in the frenzy of celebration, no one suspected anything. Jack returned to his bride much more animated and happy than he had been at the beginning of the ceremony, as if nothing had happened 5 minutes ago. He held Anna's hand, joked with friends, but his gaze found Sarah again and again. When the celebration ended, Sarah was about to leave. She was ready to sink through the floor and give everything she had just to forget the day, this wedding forever. But Jack caught her at the restaurant exit. Their eyes met. Not a single word, but everything was clear. They now shared a secret that they both decided to keep. Weeks of sleepless nights followed. Sarah constantly caught herself thinking about that evening. How she wanted to repeat it all. Her life had turned into hell. Until one day when a call came from an unknown number. It was Jack. "We need to meet," he said quietly. From that day, their secret relationship became a continuation of the teenage passion they had both dreamed about for many years. They met secretly, beyond the boundaries of the life that each has built in plain sight. At first, Jack found reasons for urgent meetings with Sarah, supposedly to discuss details of the wedding album, and later he arranged for her to work at his father-in-law's company, in the advertising department. Now they could see each other regularly without arousing suspicion. Although both understood that this romance would exist only in the shadows of Jack's real life with his young wife, Anna. And although Sarah knew their relationship was doomed, she couldn't give up this part of herself that had consumed her and Jack, bringing back the feelings of youth and first love. Thank you guys, like the story, subscribe to the channel and leave your comments below.